How are you
Mhm.
creating boldness and brilliance? Are you allowing your clients to tap into that energy? Whether you bring out paints or you bring out collage work or you just ask people to talk about their strengths.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Britton, and welcome to the Coaching Money Podcast. I've been on a mission for the last 20 years to expand the coaching conversation to many. Along with my co-host, Ivana Valley, we're going to be exploring coaching as it relates to conversations, connection, and change in both personal and professional settings. Coaching Money is about creating empowering and thought-provoking spaces for conversation which strengthen relationships and enhance results. Throughout the Coaching Money podcast, we'll share tools, practices, and approaches to support you in your conversations, one dialogue at a time.
Hey, Ivana, it's so good to be back with you. It's midsummer and you're looking bright and cheery. I'm sitting out on the veranda at the cottage recording this, very thankful
Mm.
to have our weekly, bi-weekly recording and also like have another adventure for our listeners. So for those of you that are just joining us, welcome. I'm Jennifer Britton, and we are into season 2 of the Coaching Money podcast, a podcast which explores the tools and the practices and the being and doing of all things related to group and team coaching, which I coined the term on many, many moons ago, Coaching Money. So great to be with you today. What is it that you're bringing into our call in this midsummer from your beautiful location?
Mm. Well, this morning I was up early, and after working with a client, I went into town to the farmer's market to get my local eggplant and tomatoes. And I'm just thinking about the richness of the color and the diversity of
Mm.
like the zucchini and the apricots. Everything is fresh, everything is ripe, everything is color. And so to me, I think that's what I'm bringing. Your shirt is reminding me of that. And just to be able to walk through the town and just take it all in. Like sometimes there's that rush, especially, and I'm going to bring the context of even in our coaching conversations, we think that we need to show up and do, and we do, but it's also how can we create that space for
Yeah.
our participants, like to even notice the zucchini at the market or notice, whatever it is around them in their space to get them present. And I think that's
Yes.
really, I'll let you introduce the topic, but that's what I think I'm coming in with is just the joy of the season, the joy of the seasonality of summer and just what becomes possible through that. And to me, I think, how can we bring that to a coaching conversation?
Yeah. And, I'm going to do a little story before I even reveal the
Yeah.
topic because Saturday I found myself in the middle of the Muskoka Novel Writing Marathon, which I do every year, which is 72 hours of writing. You can't write for 72 hours. So I went out, I had to do some errands. And on the way back, I was like, oh, I heard about a new farmer's market down the road. I better find it. And I thought it was much closer than it was. But when I got there, here's why I'm sharing the story, because just like you said, there's this discovery, there's this like surprise and delight, which is so aligned with the experience design
Totally.
I'm doing right now. But what would be it did not surprise me, but as I step into the market, I hear reggae. Actually, I heard soca, and I'm like, this is interesting. Soca in the middle of the woods. What is going on? And I look over, and there's these beautiful woven baskets. There's this vendor, this
Mm.
couple that are selling these beautiful baskets. And it takes me back to a basket I had in Barbados many, many moons ago. It was my laundry basket. And I was like, oh, I had to leave that laundry basket like 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over and see. And I just jokingly said to the man, I said, are you Trini? And he's like, girl, no, I'm not Trini. And I said, you're Guyanese. It was my Guyana connection for the day showing up in the middle of Muskoka. And so I wound up
Right.
getting a little basket. But what is that basket now? It's my little basket of coaching tools, which takes us to today's
Wow.
topic. Today's topic is 5 tools to grow your practice and presence in coaching groups and teams. So,
Yeah.
what's in your toolbox or what's in your little basket, which sadly is at my office, so I can't bring it in as a prop, but maybe we'll take a photo of it and put it online so people could see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, how do you carry your tools around when you think about all the things that you've accumulated over the years? Where do you put them? Do you have a special space or bag or something you keep them in?
You've actually sparked I actually want to make a creative holder for it now. For you, it's the Guyanese, but I think even that changes the energy of my tools. So some of my tools are on my phone, some of them, my conversation sparker tools. And of course, I'm on Blur, like the charms,
Yes.
all these things are always with me in this bag, but I think I'm going to recreate the bag, be creative and bring color and joy. So when I do bring them with me, because they're always with me, at least there's also that energy of maybe some Canadiana, because these are Canadian tools from you, but maybe even I might even start collecting tools. So they're all over. And I think that's kind of how I roll. And is some are on my phone that I can pull them if I need to. Some of them are in my hands, the kinesthetic. But what I'm sparking is be creative and bring joy. How can we bring joy and bring even positive intention to these tools, especially as we build them? And I want to say one more other thing, if I may, is I also have an Excel sheet that lists my different tools. And when I say tools, like I talk about my toys, but also my tools that if I'm actually building a design matrix, which is something that you have copyrighted with your group coaching essentials. But at least I have now this resource where I can go and go, okay, in this theme, what are my tools? So there's a broader sense of tools that I'm also in this conversation, I'm hearing in this conversation. And we're going to go through some of our favorite tools as it relates to the range and expanding ourselves as group and team coaches. And just know that they'll continue to evolve. They'll continue to grow. And you likely have many already. So there's tools maybe for icebreakers, closers, but then there's also tools for your actual conversations.
Completely. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. So just like, this like, oh, I stumbled across this beautiful woven bag on the, really on the side of a highway at a farmer's market. First, right at the gate. You have acquired as a coach so many questions and inquiries. And, this doesn't have to be a tool, a physical tool. We just also want to sort of say it does not metaphorically have to be a tool. But metaphors are a great doorway in. So maybe that's our
That is a tool.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to lay it over top of the group and team coaching superpower quiz, because it was almost 4 years ago now, I want to say, when that quiz idea, 3 years ago, 3 summers ago, when that quiz idea was birthed. And it was really in response to this notion of how can I, in a fun way, get group and team coaches to start thinking about presence? I want to give a shout out to the late Doug Silsby, who really, evolved this part of the coaching profession around presence-based coaching. Many coaching models have a big focus on it. Some do, some don't. But I think as group and team coaches, because we're working with a wider cross-section of people, our ability to expand our range, to get out of our comfort zones is absolutely critical. So there's 2 pieces to this. One, understanding our presence and being able to adjust and morph and sort of shape shift. But 2, it's also recognizing the very innate diversity that exists with any group or team. So with that, we're going to go through, if you're not familiar with the group and team coaching superpower quiz, we'll leave a link. I'll invite you to take it. You don't have to. I think in our descriptions of these 5 different coaching superpowers, a couple of things to keep in mind. They are just a very broad neighborhood of ways of coaching. 2, as a group or team coach, we're not just wanting to lean into one. We actually need to grow all 5. So I think that's pretty important. And what else would you say, Ivana, about the superpowers?
I think the superpowers are so powerful because to me, at least, I've used them. I've been able to lean into them as, identifying to meet my participants where they are. right? So when I'm actually present, which is a core competencies, by the way. So like this is a big part of who we are, whether we're doing one-on-one, group coaching, team coaching, but that presence. And so for me, it really is about meeting our participants where they are. And that really means us showing up, as you said, our presence. So then we can adapt. We can be agile and go, okay, in this situation, or even in a group or team context, if you're speaking with someone in particular, really acknowledging where they are and being able to bring in something even uniquely to a moment in a conversation. So to me, it's really about that, is really meeting people where they are. And these superpowers are a tool to help you do that. So you're not so silo focused, but you're like, okay, this is in this situation, this circumstance, I need to adapt. I need to pivot. I need to whatever. Or even better, ask that powerful question, know where they want to go, where they need to be, where they want to be taken.
Love it. And again, our presence, our ability to get grounded is so critical. You may notice if you're watching this, just interesting lighting, because literally the sun is coming up over the hills across the river.
Beautiful.
So that you're going to see part of my world, which I need this every year. This is an integral part of my being and doing in the world. I could not do what I do without having weeks, months actually now, to just work out of here to renew my soul, because there's a lot that our clients are bringing to conversation. And how do we remain grounded? And I say that as I watch this beautiful hummingbird feeding itself in the morning. There we go. So yes, where are you coaching from? I think we'll put that out. What are you doing as a practice to renew, to reflect, to pause, to just be? And yes, life is busy, but what are you doing to really find the peace in all the tumultuous waves and opportunities of the world? So where do we want to start? Which superpower do you want to dive into first? It's your choice.
Well, I think let's build off of what you just said in terms of that grounding, like that, part of that, presence is recognizing what we need, recognizing what our participants need, that pause, that reflection, that renewal. And to me, the doorway is often the grounded labyrinth to create the space for the pause.
Yeah.
The
As the hummingbird comes back to feed again. So
Yeah.
what is, grounded labyrinth? What are you doing to get grounded? What are you doing to be here now? That is another part of the grounded labyrinth persona. And, I think this, as if listeners are listening, this has always been my area. This is why I think you are so good at this, Ivana, in your work. And will be my ongoing evolution. This to me is, we have our recent episode of Be Do Have, which listeners can listen to. And this is where visualizations come in. For years, I've recommended the Coactive Coaching book because they have such a great selection of different ideas, including visualizations in their appendix of the book. So pick up a copy and you'll have access to that, of Coactive Coaching. One of the things I've been toying with, and I think people will be interested in this, I've been using ChatGPT for the last 4 months to help me write visualizations for different groups. So I did one on the weekend at the Muskoka Novel Marathon, which was really customized for the writers. And I could just see how much it actually helped them individually be with what they were creating. It was day 3 of day 3, the morning of day 3. So about 12 hours left in this 72-hour quest. And I had people come up afterwards and say, wow, like that was just amazing. I've never done anything like that. Like, is this what you do? And it's like, they know me as a writer. They don't know me as a coach. It's like, this is part of the work that we do. This is part of the space that we hold. So what comes to mind for you when you think like either visualizations or you think grounded labyrinth?
Well, I think, there's a lot of, in the coaching conversations, there's a lot of buzz. Oh, well, that's like too woo-woo for me. So that's what's really coming up in my space in terms of as we're having this conversation. And I just want to normalize this because we're, again, meeting people where they're at doesn't mean you stay clear from this. It's you adapt. How can you adapt it? So maybe it is a visualization, if you're doing a session on vision, for example, so you help like that. The visualization, the CTI book is great because it really kind of supports that. But maybe it's as easy as, having a fruit bowl, in the room and having people go and pick a fruit and having people enjoy the fruit and using the five senses to help them really appreciate like that mindfulness piece, right? Like, or maybe it's just allowing people to kind of get outside and see what calls them and really have them reflect for a few minutes on what they see, what they hear. Like you said to me right before we hit record, do you hear the birds, Ivana? And I'm like, I don't hear the birds where you are. But it's like, how can we create small moments? In CTI, we call it geography. I know how many people are like, they're on a Zoom call and the sirens go by. And even that, like, how can we create a pause there and go, okay, there's an alarm. What's the alarm and what's being said? Like, it doesn't have to be ginormous moments. I think that's the power of coaching is how can we just use these small moments to allow a small pause? And, in week 2 of GCE, we talk about those bookends. How can we support people to come into the conversation, be present? It's just so many different things. So I guess for me, what I'm really hearing with Grounded Labyrinth, and thank you for the compliment. And I will say this has been my range for 10 years. I've been intentionally building Grounded Labyrinth because I am a doer.
Yes.
I'm a doer. And yet I know if I'm not slowed down and present, how can I support my clients to be present? And part of that Grounded Labyrinth, and for those of you who do somatic work, this might be more native to you, but we're going to get to the other ones. And there might be one that you need to build your range because it's not unlike, and we've said this in previous episodes, and you can elaborate this isn't a strength. As a group and team coach, coaching many coach, you need to be able to adapt to what is happening, to what's not being said and needs to be said. And so these are tools to help you, but to help really this transformation we all stand for.
Absolutely. And I'll put one little piece because it is essential for teams today. So just last week, before the marathon, I was working with a team in downtown Toronto, and you might think, well, I can't take the team out. Well, what about the space that you're in? We had a beautiful, we're in a beautiful building. We could see out to Lake Ontario. We could see out to the Toronto Islands. And I just asked them at one point, I said, I think it's time for a break. How about we just go look out the window? We sort of played, here we are, multiple dozens and dozens of, stories up because Toronto, if you've been there, a lot of high rise. It's just like New York City, right?
Totally.
So we're up there. We could not get on the elevator and go down quickly. It was just, let's go and look. And really, you could hear the peace settling in for this team, just even allowing them in the world that they operate within to catch their breath for a moment.
Absolutely.
And to be aware that there is something more than them. And there is that ability to find that touch point, even in the chaos of whatever they're experiencing.
So, and if I can wrap that up, I think really what we're touching on is like different metaphors, whether it be the siren, whether it be the fruit bowl, whether it be the market and the vegetables, whether it be looking out the window and what do you see? Like, how can we create those micro moments for people to catch their breath, to actually show up and be able to be present for why they said yes to you in coming into your coaching conversation? Because there obviously is something, but to help them come into that. So these are just different metaphors, and there's lots of tools, also. And I just want to kind of highlight that.
Love it. Well, we could have an hour-long episode, so we're going to keep moving. And we do explore this in our Activate Your Group and Team Coaching Superpower program, which is a 14 CCE program. So of interest, you don't have to have a prerequisite other than, probably some experience It's for advanced coaches, but also I think for coaches who are, at that part of their journey where they want to start thinking about, how am I showing up? What do the people that I'm coaching need? So
Mhm.
as we think about the grounded labyrinth and being here now, it's also about the spiral lighthouse experience. That spiral lighthouse coach, instead of walking the labyrinth, maybe walking the inner circle of the lighthouse. No surprise, I'm at the dollar store yesterday. What did I find? A 2026 lighthouse calendar. Had to pick that up, even though it's
Amazing.
only July. Put it away.
Yeah.
And, the spiral lighthouse coach is, and this is I think your primary, right?
Yeah.
Is really about looking and unearthing different perspectives of
Yeah.
walking through and around that spiral, being able to
Mhm.
take clients to a different perspective every moment of the journey. The
Yeah.
spiral lighthouse coach is also amazing at creating that safe harbor of trust, safety, and
Yeah.
connection. And I can say it's not just trust and safety. It's got to be, as I have advocated since 2017, the
Mhm.
triad of trust, safety, connection. So let's spend
Yeah.
a minute talking about, whether it's perspectives or building trust, building connectivity, spiral lighthouse coaching. What do you like to go to first as a spiral lighthouse coach?
Well, I think for me, I'm glad you chose this, by the way, as the second one, because when you're talking about in Toronto at the top of the building and looking out, I naturally went to, yeah, like that. What's the perspective from that window, right? As opposed to now, we're going to turn around and look at the wall, even if there was no window. Do you know what I mean? So really, just like that play of that environment, and I
Mm,
think we as coaches, and I say this because it's still something that I have to be really intentional, is like we have to be willing to be creative, to kind of think outside the box, to experiment, and things might go flat. But what I love about the Spiral Lighthouse, and the reason why I really connect to this, is because trust to me is foundational. It is one of my core values.
mm,
I do a lot of work in relationships because, in my opinion, without those relationships, results are challenging to achieve. But where am I going with all this? A lot of this is grounded in who you are. And so that Spiral Lighthouse to me, that trust, that safety, that connection is foundational to values.
yeah.
For me, the tool, in building self trust, we need to know who we are. And in order for us to build trust with others, we still need to know who we are. And that a big part of that is the values. So we know who we can open up with. We know how we build trust, right? Those,
Mhm,
those, as Brene Brown says, like it's those marble jar moments. It's those small things
mm,
that build trust. And how do we do that? I'm going to bring it to the group coaching or the team. How are we doing that as a coach in the room? How are we supporting that in the room? And I think this superpower, we teach this in group coaching essentials. There are fundamental things that you can do to support building that trust, safety, and connection.
In team
Go
coaching
ahead.
essentials, it's the micro moments, right? It's the micro
Yeah.
moments that build the trust and that also erode the trust.
Yeah.
And I was saying this to you before we started recording. I really think for 2025, trust is the theme of the year, right? It's on so many different levels. And are people even diving into that conversation? And as I have written 15 years ago, unless
Yeah.
there is trust, we cannot coach. We can have a conversation, but it's
Yeah.
really probably not a coaching conversation.
We're not saying anything that our coach, like our listeners don't know in one-on-one, like, and even core comms, like the creating those agreements.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the foundation of trust, that design alliance. But when you get a group, you get a team in, like that becomes something on steroids. And there has to be intentionality because you can't just jump into the coaching conversation for true coaching. As we've said this many times, going below those waterline, you can't do that if that foundation of trust isn't. And so this superpower is foundational as well as all the other ones to support you in that space, to create that container so then you can do the work that your participants really want and desire for themselves
Mhm.
and for the entity.
Yeah, it's part of the fabric. And so again, how do you do that? You mentioned perspectives. How might you do it? You might bring in things like the charms. I know you had
Yeah, I
yours.
was
I
gonna
have
say.
mine here,
Yeah.
right? It's like pick a charm. Again, I did this with our group at the novel marathon. These are not coaches, but they really loved it. So today I've picked up the tree of life, right? And it's just
Mm,
very, might be the metaphor of the day. Certainly, if you have a copy of Plan, Do, Track or Coaching Business Builder, right? What are the values? What are the roots? What's the stance? What are you taking a stand for? What are
yeah.
your opportunities? What are your strengths? So we could do a whole episode on this, but we're going to keep moving. So we've
Yeah.
done Grounded Labyrinth, Be Here Now, Spiral Lighthouse, Trust, Safety, Connection. Let's go to the opposite of that. I would also say Spiral Lighthouse, what do you have to do the 360 view of things?
Yes.
And an alternative to a 360, like a spiral, like a lighthouse, could be da da da. And this is the month of July, so a lot of people are seeing fireworks or drone shows, getting into the catalytic firecracker range. And a
Hmm.
catalytic firecracker coach is probably very comfortable at helping people accelerate and catalyze their actions. It is a firecracker energy of like, boom, it's big and it's bold. And so there are so many tools in this arena. I'm going to go to you in a minute. What comes to my mind when I think of the many firecracker or fireworks shows I've seen in the last couple of months is, that 30,000-foot view, that and the brilliance, right? How are you
Hmm.
creating boldness and brilliance? Are you allowing your clients to tap into that energy? Whether you bring out paints or you bring out collage work or you just ask people to talk about their strengths, right? So, catalytic firecracker, what is going to help people really catalyze the energy? And there's a blending. So, this coach is also very big on action, where we might
Yeah.
think about things like trackers and the whole toolkit under the Plan, Do, Track
Hmm.
body of work. Catalytic firecracker, what do you do with your clients to help them get more, get accelerated, get going?
I think part of that activation comes in the body. And
Mhm.
so helping them notice that, just even bringing that awareness to say, okay, great, let's embody that. Now, what becomes possible? So, really, that piece. But I think for me, it's also oftentimes it's just allowing them to name the energy in the room
Yes.
and building off that momentum
Mhm.
of like, what are we noticing in this system? We'll say in this conversation, like, where are we lit up? Like, what is the color that you are seeing in this conversation? And then
Mhm.
building off that. So if they say red, okay, so what's red? How can we expand that? How can we double down on that? So again, using those metaphors, colors, that type of stuff. And I think for me, I think part of the catalytic firecracker is also inviting, and I'm going to be really vulnerable. Like, this is my growth edge. So I'm really leaning into my growth edge right
Mm.
now, and I'm naming it. So I'm going to maybe even have some accountability on this, is what's not being said, like the elephant in the room. You and I are having these conversations right now in terms of, offline, but like, I think that's part of the catalytic firecrackers as the coach. Are we, grounded, but are we there present to say, hey, what's not being said?
Yeah.
What, right? Like, I think that's part of catalytic firecracker,
It
that, and
is
that's
the
the part that I need to
provocateur.
leave. Yeah.
It is
That
the
boldness.
provocateur. And you know what? I almost named this one a provocateur. So we
Oh,
need to draw
interesting.
that out. We need to shine a light on that because if we are not calling a team or a group on what is happening, we're not fully
Yeah.
allowing for all the conversations to have. So, provocateur, think of that. And I want to leave it with that because I think we are in an era right now where people are, for whatever reason, not being provocative.
Yeah.
Maybe because we live in
Yeah.
a provocative world. But what is the cost of that if we do
Hmm.
not step into the ability to be a provocateur, to
Yeah.
help people question what is lost? So,
Yeah.
catalytic firecracker, it's a very important, very bold energy. And I think this is like coaches don't come to coaching to be bold. But I think, again, in service of client, in service of self, we need to like find that boldness. And I love that this is your edge. Well, here's the next one we're going to go to, ecosystem connector. Green is the color of the ecosystem connector. And think about, what are we doing to help people really look at this whole system as well as the connectivity? Two elements to it. Connection is so important. It is what people are yearning for. And this is where helping teams, I'll start with teams first, helping teams understand their system, helping teams name, identify, and work with their external systems even. So through stakeholder mapping, constellation work. This is really about helping people identify and explore the web of connectivity. And I think this is an era, it depends on where you sort of play. There's lots of focus on systemic coaching in 2025. And is that where your clients have capability right now? Right? One of the things that has been sort of eroded, and the research show this, in years of all remote work, is the connection. That's why we've done episodes on the 6 layers of connection. And so what are you doing as a coach to really help people see and grow or shift the webs of connectivity that exist? What comes to mind when you think of the ecosystem connector sort of capabilities?
A few things. For me, one of the things that I'm thinking, even in the formation of groups, how are we supporting people's voices to come into the room, but also how are we supporting them how are we creating the space for people to actually feel connected? That is part of that trust, safety, and connection. I'm also really, really, really present around cultures and the diversity in cultures, where I'm experiencing this right now with one of the groups I'm leading. There's people from various countries, and English isn't their first language. It's a lot of the work I do in Italy concerning language. And so how can we bring that? How can we create that space that people can feel connected while still distinct? And I think that's part of that econ connector for sure. And even I'm thinking in that space, that connection, we see this a lot in practicum. And it was part of my early journey, right? Okay, everyone has to do everything together. Well, how are you creating space for people to connect more in peer situations, in smaller dyads or triads, especially because as the group's coming together, there's personalities, introverts, extroverts. How is all that? So I think there's that. And I don't know if I'm going too much on a tangent and saying what I shared.
No, I would say it's a very practical piece. You're going to want to think about the scaffolding of how you are actually hosting a conversation. The 1 hour that I had with writers the other day, we had been together for 3 days at this point. We'd eaten together. Some of us sleeping in the same, very small area, writing together. Yet do you know each other? And so as part of our work, I wasn't just doing, let's all talk. We had triadic work, right? Like, let's get you the opportunity to talk with a few people, 2 other people. And what was interesting is I noticed through the rest of the 12 hours that remained after this, how those triads came together. And it was very different, even as people said goodbye at the end of the experience. And I think part of it was this opportunity to have a few minutes. We're talking like 8-10 minutes. But having those deep conversations that you might not have had otherwise. So ecosystem connector energy, very, very important. And we're leaving this now with our 5th and final area of the creative tool master. I'm a creative tool master.
You are.
It has been my work. I've been very lucky since a very young age to be in environments like this where it is about the experience. It's about creating the range of experiences for people. So the creative tool master will always have things in their back pocket. We've talked about some of the more experiential tools that I've created under the Conversation Sparker brand, the cards, the charms. I think it's apropos to bring in our reconnecting workspaces dice, because there can be a variety. We want to have a variety of things. So I'm going to just roll the dice. I've got the yellow set, which are these all map to the 90-day guide for success. And these map to the last few days. And so we have got, no surprise, what's beyond the screen. what's beyond
Okay.
the screen.
Beautiful. Which we've touched on.
We've
how many
touched on today,
times?
right?
Yeah.
We've got that one. We've got DNA, and that you could be thinking about the DNA of self, the DNA of the group, the
Yeah.
DNA of the team. And this one, and my card has fallen, so I'm not going to try and pick it up. But this one I want to say is influence. Influence. Could also be social network.
Yeah.
So as you look at these three, what's beyond the screen, DNA, and influence, what comes to mind for you, Ivana?
I'm just thinking about exactly where I am right now in this moment on this day, and just thinking about like the DNA of it. For me, it's about my family and how I can stay connected with them, even though I'm so far away. You know, what's beyond the screen, like what's beyond my five senses, maybe my intuition. You know, how am I honoring my intuition? How am I honoring my environment to get inspiration for action? And then influence, like what influence do I have even through this conversation with you for our listeners? What influence do I stand for that can activate me and maybe can activate a different perspective, a different choice in everything that I do, whether it be with my family, my friends, my professional journey, this podcast.
So again, like something like the dice, right? It's about the creative spark. It's about creating space for creativity. It's about having your toolkit and knowing what's in your toolkit. And part of doing today's episode, it was really inspired by the work that I did over the weekend with the writers, the work that I was doing last week with the team. You know, like we are a shapeshifter. I've talked about it as being a chameleon, right? We have to be a chameleon. And the more chameleon-like we can be, the more we can serve the client. What is appropriate for the moment? Where are they now? But also, what are those comfort zones? How do we also bring in more of this? It's again, the engagement levers, the soundboard. I might need to bring in a little bit more of an emphasis on grounded labyrinth to support this group right now. Or maybe we need to be more of the provocateur. We need to be more of the catalytic firecracker.
Yeah.
So we'd invite you, if you haven't taken the quiz, take the quiz, look at it, think about it, not through the lens of this is me, but how do I grow my capacity with all of these? How do I grow my confidence and my ability to bring that different type of energy, that different layer, that different focus in service to the people you serve, whether it's a group or it's a team. And I know our listeners really appreciate when we get to sit down, Ivana, together to talk about the different type of work that we're doing. And we hope that you are going to continue to see just the variety of what the world of conversation looks like and how it is similar, but also different and nuanced across group and team coaching. So thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful as always. And I just want to say with all of these, you are where you are, take the quiz and just, you know, be present to what can be possible. And so build that Excel sheet, start listing those tools, whether it be photos, whether it be emojis, whether it be conversation sparker charms, dice, whatever it is, because oftentimes you have more than you realize. And so get yourself organized and start seeing how you can play with these to bring more of a wow experience to your conversations.
And have fun as you do it, right? One thing I've heard a lot
Absolutely.
as I've been journeying with different groups and different teams, even in the last month, is everyone wants to have a bit more fun.
Yeah.
That's why we've created the Conversation Sparkers. So check out the website, conversationsparker.com. Check out the quiz, and we look forward to being back with you in a few weeks for another episode. Take care, everyone.
Awesome.
Be well.
Bye.
Bye.